What if the money you earn is actually costing you something far more valuable than you realize? Not just dollars, but hours of your life. Think about it. Every paycheck represents time, effort, energy, attention, and work. You exchange a portion of your life to earn that money. Then you use that money to pay for things you need, things you want, and sometimes things you barely remember buying. So here is the question. Are you truly getting enough value from the money you spend to justify the time you gave up to earn it? Welcome to this complete educational summary of Your Money or Your Life by Vicki and Joe Dominguez. In this journey, we are going to look at money from a different perspective. We will explore why simply earning more money does not automatically create financial freedom, why spending can become automatic, and how becoming more aware of your financial habits can change the way you make everyday decisions. But this is not about becoming obsessed with saving every dollar. It is about understanding what your money represents. We will begin by examining your relationship with money and the connection between income, work, spending, and time. Then we will explore how to understand where your money actually goes, how to distinguish meaningful spending from unnecessary consumption, and why knowing your expenses can give you greater control. But there is another question waiting for us. How much is enough? If you continue chasing more income, more possessions, more upgrades, when does the pursuit finally stop? We will explore how defining your priorities can help you spend more intentionally without turning financial discipline into a miserable lifestyle. From there, we will move toward saving, financial independence, and greater financial flexibility. You will discover why financial independence is not simply about becoming rich. It can mean having enough stability and flexibility that financial pressure does not control every important decision in your life. We will also examine the relationship between money and work. Does earning more always mean living better? Or could a better financial life sometimes come from needing less, spending more intentionally, and creating more choices with the resources you already have? And throughout this journey, we will return to one powerful idea. Your time is limited. Money can sometimes be earned again. Possessions can be replaced. Income can change. But time that has already passed cannot be recovered. So before we begin, ask yourself one question. If your money represents a portion of your life, are you spending it in a way that reflects what truly matters to you? Keep that question in mind. Because the answer may change the way you see money, work, spending, saving, and financial freedom. Welcome to Your Money or Your Life. What if the way you think about money has been shaped by habits you never consciously chose? From an early age, many people learn a simple equation: work more, earn more, buy more. Success can become associated with a larger paycheck, a better house, a newer vehicle, or a lifestyle that appears impressive from the outside. But there is another way to look at money. Money is not only a number. It represents the time, effort, attention, and energy you exchange to obtain it. That idea changes the first question we should ask about our finances. Instead of asking only, how much did this cost, we can ask, how much of my life did this purchase require? This does not mean that every purchase is wrong or that enjoying useful things is irresponsible. Food, housing, education, transportation, communication, and many other expenses can be legitimate and necessary. The purpose of this perspective is awareness. When we connect money with time, spending becomes more conscious. Imagine receiving a paycheck. The number on the paycheck represents the result of work that required a portion of your life. If part of that money is spent on something meaningful, useful, or genuinely valuable, the exchange may make sense. But if money disappears through purchases that provide little lasting value, it becomes worth asking whether the exchange was truly beneficial. This is where awareness begins. Many people know approximately how much they earn but have only a vague idea of where their money goes. Small purchases can be difficult to notice because each one seems harmless. A snack. A subscription. A delivery fee. An unnecessary upgrade. A purchase made simply because something is on sale. None of these automatically creates a financial problem. The issue is the pattern. Repeated spending can become a lifestyle without ever being deliberately chosen. That is why examining expenses can be useful. The purpose is not to judge yourself for every purchase. It is to understand your behavior. When you know where your money goes, you can decide what deserves to stay and what can be reduced. This creates a difference between unconscious spending and intentional spending. Unconscious spending happens when money leaves your account without much thought. Intentional spending happens when the purchase reflects a decision you have actually considered. The difference may appear small, but it can influence the direction of your finances over time. Another important idea is that income alone does not determine financial progress. Two people can earn similar amounts and experience completely different financial situations. One may spend almost everything. The other may keep expenses manageable, save consistently, and prepare for future needs. The difference is not necessarily intelligence. It can simply be behavior. This is why increasing income should not be the only financial goal. Improving financial habits matters too. When income rises, it can be tempting to immediately increase spending. A larger paycheck can make previously expensive purchases feel affordable. But if every increase in income creates another permanent expense, financial pressure may continue. This is often called lifestyle inflation. As income increases, spending increases as well. There is nothing inherently wrong with improving your lifestyle. The important question is whether every improvement becomes a long-term obligation. A balanced approach allows reasonable enjoyment while protecting future flexibility. That flexibility comes from creating a gap between what you earn and what you spend. When such a gap exists, some money can be directed toward savings and legitimate future goals. Savings can provide more than future purchasing power. They can provide breathing room. An unexpected expense may become easier to handle. A temporary reduction in income may become less frightening. A future goal may become more realistic. And important decisions may become less dependent on immediate financial pressure. This is one reason financial awareness matters so much. You cannot deliberately direct your money if you do not know where it is going. A useful habit is to examine expenses regularly and group them into broad categories. Essential expenses may include basic needs and responsibilities. Useful expenses may improve your life or support important goals. Optional expenses may provide enjoyment but are not essential. The categories will differ from person to person. What matters is recognizing the difference. Once you see the pattern, you can begin asking better questions. Does this expense support my priorities? Would I make the same purchase again? Am I paying for something I rarely use? Is this expense recurring? Could I achieve the same purpose with a simpler option? These questions do not require eliminating enjoyment. They create a useful pause between desire and action. Once you begin looking at money as a resource connected to your limited time and energy, another question becomes important. What does your work actually cost you? A salary is usually presented as a simple number. You earn a certain amount each month or year, and that number becomes the basis for judging whether a job is attractive. But the real value of employment can be more complicated. Work may require commuting, clothing, meals, equipment, preparation, professional expenses, and time outside the hours officially spent at the workplace. Some jobs may also create stress or require recovery time. This does not mean that work is bad. Work can provide income, skills, experience, purpose, relationships, and opportunities to contribute. The point is simply to look at the complete exchange rather than focusing on the paycheck alone. Suppose a job provides a higher salary but also requires substantially more time and additional expenses. Another opportunity may provide less income but leave more time and flexibility. Which one creates greater value? There is no universal answer. The right decision depends on your responsibilities, goals, skills, circumstances, and priorities. But asking the question can improve financial awareness. Instead of comparing jobs only by salary, consider the broader relationship between time, energy, expenses, and income. This way of thinking can also change how you evaluate purchases. A product may have a price, but obtaining the money for that product required your time. If something costs the equivalent of several hours of your work, the purchase represents more than the number printed on a receipt. It represents a portion of your limited life. Again, this does not mean every purchase should be rejected. The purpose is to make the exchange visible. If you spend money on something that genuinely improves your life, supports your responsibilities, or provides lasting usefulness, you may consider the exchange worthwhile. But if you repeatedly spend on things that quickly lose their appeal, awareness can help you recognize the pattern. This is especially important with recurring expenses. A one-time purchase ends after the payment. A subscription, financing obligation, or lifestyle commitment can continue month after month. The financial effect may therefore be much larger than the first payment suggests. Before accepting a recurring expense, ask whether the benefit will continue to justify the cost. Another important principle is enough. Modern consumer culture can make it difficult to recognize when you already have enough. There is always a newer model. A larger home. A more advanced device. A more expensive experience. A more fashionable product. The problem is not that these things exist. The problem occurs when the desire for more becomes automatic. If every improvement creates another desire, satisfaction can remain permanently out of reach. Defining what is enough can interrupt that cycle. Enough does not mean refusing progress. It means identifying the point at which additional spending provides less value than the time and resources required to obtain it. This can be deeply personal. For one person, a certain expense may be essential. For another, it may have little value. The goal is not to impose one lifestyle on everyone. The goal is to make your own choices consciously. Another important idea is consumer awareness. Advertising is designed to attract attention and encourage purchases. Social media can also create pressure by constantly showing other people's lifestyles. When we repeatedly see expensive homes, vehicles, travel, clothing, and entertainment, it can become easy to assume that these things represent normal success. But what we see is only a small part of another person's life. We do not see their complete financial obligations. We do not see their savings. We do not see their debt. We do not see the sacrifices behind the appearance. This is why comparing lifestyles can be misleading. A healthier approach is to compare your current financial behavior with your own goals. Are you spending more intentionally? Are you saving more consistently? Are you reducing unnecessary obligations? Are you making decisions based on your priorities rather than social pressure? These questions provide useful information. Another important lesson is that financial awareness creates choice. When you know your expenses, you can decide what to change. When you understand your income, you can plan. When you understand your obligations, you can recognize how much flexibility you actually have. Without that information, financial decisions are often based on assumptions. This is why tracking money can be valuable. That awareness can improve everyday decisions wisely. Once you understand where your money goes and begin connecting spending with the time and energy required to earn it, the next step is to create a clearer relationship between income, expenses, saving, and future goals. A financial plan does not have to begin with complicated calculations. It can begin with awareness. How much money comes in? How much goes out? Which expenses are necessary? Which expenses provide genuine value? Which expenses are simply habits? And how much remains available for the future? These questions create the foundation for responsible financial planning. One of the most important principles is to create a sustainable difference between what you earn and what you spend. If every dollar that enters your life immediately leaves through consumption, there is little room for preparation. But when part of your income is intentionally preserved, that money can serve future purposes. Savings can help prepare for unexpected expenses. They can support important goals. They can provide flexibility during changes in income. And they can reduce dependence on borrowing when circumstances become difficult. The exact amount someone should save depends on their situation. A person with stable employment may have different needs from someone with irregular income. A family may have different responsibilities from an individual. There is no universal number that guarantees financial security. The important principle is consistency. Saving should become a deliberate financial habit rather than something that happens only when money happens to remain at the end of the month. Another useful concept is automating good financial behavior. When appropriate, setting aside money regularly can reduce the number of decisions required every month. Instead of repeatedly asking whether you should save, you can establish a routine that gives saving a clear priority. The specific method depends on the person's circumstances and financial system. The broader principle is simple. Make responsible behavior easier to repeat. This idea can also apply to spending. If certain purchases repeatedly cause problems, create friction before making them. Give yourself time before major purchases. Review recurring expenses. Avoid shopping simply because you are bored. Do not allow limited time marketing to create artificial urgency. A short pause can sometimes prevent a long-term financial commitment. Another important lesson is the difference between price and value. Price is the amount of money required to purchase something. Value is what that purchase actually contributes to your life. A low-priced item that is rarely used may provide little value. A more expensive item that is genuinely useful and lasts a long time may provide greater value. The objective is therefore not simply to buy the cheapest option. It is to spend intentionally. This prevents financial discipline from becoming an obsession with avoiding every expense. Responsible money management is not about refusing to spend. It is about understanding why you spend. Another important principle is delayed gratification. When you choose to postpone a purchase, you create an opportunity to direct resources towards something more important. This does not mean every future goal should automatically be more important than every present enjoyment. A balanced life includes reasonable enjoyment. The key is to ensure that present consumption does not repeatedly undermine future priorities. This requires self-control. And self-control becomes easier when your priorities are clear. If you know what you are saving for, saying no to an unnecessary purchase can become easier. Without a clear purpose, saving can feel like simply giving something up. With a meaningful goal, saving becomes an active decision. Another important lesson is financial independence. The idea is not simply to accumulate a large number in an account. Financial independence can be understood as increasing the ability to meet responsibilities and make important choices without being completely controlled by financial pressure. That freedom can take different forms. It might mean having enough savings to handle unexpected expenses. It might mean having the flexibility to change jobs. It might mean being able to reduce unnecessary work pressure. It might mean having greater control over how your time is used. The exact destination is different for every person. But the direction is similar: greater financial flexibility. Another important idea is time as a limited resource. Money can sometimes be earned again. Time cannot. Once a day has passed, it cannot be purchased back. This makes time an important part of financial decision-making. If a purchase requires many hours of work, the real question is not only whether you can afford the price. It is whether you consider the exchange worthwhile. Again, this is not a command to reject everything that costs money. It is an invitation to become more conscious. A meaningful purchase can be worth the time required to earn it. An unnecessary purchase may not be. The decision belongs to you. Another important principle is aligning spending with values. If family is important to you, your financial decisions should reflect appropriate family responsibilities. If education is important, resources may be directed toward learning. If stability is important, savings and manageable expenses may deserve greater priority. If productive work is important, investing in useful skills may provide value. Money becomes more meaningful when it supports clearly defined priorities. Without priorities, spending can become reactive. With priorities, spending can become intentional. Another lesson is avoiding lifestyle inflation. When income rises, increasing spending may feel natural. But if every increase in income becomes a permanent lifestyle upgrade, the financial benefit of earning more can become smaller. A person can therefore increase income without increasing financial freedom. A more balanced approach is to decide in advance how additional income will be divided between present enjoyment, savings, responsibilities, and future goals. The exact proportions depend on circumstances. What matters is that the decision is intentional. Another important principle is reviewing your financial life regularly. Circumstances change. Income can change. Expenses can change. Responsibilities can change. Goals can change. A financial plan should therefore not be treated as something written once and forgotten. Reviewing expenses can reveal waste. Reviewing savings can reveal progress. Reviewing goals can reveal whether your current behavior still matches your priorities. The purpose of review is not to create anxiety. It is to create awareness. Another important lesson is that financial progress is not always dramatic. A month of responsible spending may not feel exciting. A growing savings balance may increase slowly. A useful skill may take years to develop. But progress often comes through repeated ordinary actions. The same principle applies to financial mistakes. A single unnecessary purchase may not matter much. Repeated unconscious spending can become significant. That is why habits matter. Ultimately, this stage of the journey is about transforming awareness into action. Know your income. Know your expenses. Identify what matters. Reduce what does not. Save consistently. Spend intentionally. Protect future flexibility. And remember that financial independence is not created by one perfect decision. It is built gradually through decisions that align your money with your priorities. The goal is not to make life smaller. The goal is to make your financial choices more deliberate. When you understand what your money represents, every financial decision becomes an opportunity to ask a meaningful question. Is this how I want to use a portion of my limited time and energy? That question can become a powerful guide for the decisions that come next. There comes a point in the journey where financial awareness needs to become something deeper than simply watching numbers. You begin to realize that the purpose of managing money is not to spend every moment thinking about money. The purpose is to understand money well enough that it can serve your important goals without constantly controlling your decisions. This brings us to one of the most important ideas in financial independence. What do you actually want your money to accomplish? A person can earn a high income and still feel financially trapped. Another person can earn less and have greater flexibility because their expenses are manageable and their financial priorities are clear. The difference is not always the size of the paycheck. It can be the relationship between income, spending, saving, responsibilities, and expectations. This is why defining your priorities matters. If you do not know what you are working toward, it becomes easy to spend according to whatever attracts your attention. Advertising can influence you. Social pressure can influence you. Friends can influence you. Convenience can influence you. Even boredom can influence you. But when your financial priorities are clear, decisions become easier to evaluate. You can ask whether an expense supports something you genuinely value or whether it is simply a reaction to a temporary desire. This does not mean that every purchase must have a serious purpose. Enjoyment has value too. Rest, recreation, hobbies, travel, food, and other reasonable experiences can all be meaningful parts of life. The important distinction is between intentional enjoyment and unconscious consumption. Intentional enjoyment is chosen. Unconscious consumption often happens automatically. The goal is not to remove enjoyment. It is to make sure your spending reflects your actual priorities instead of controlling them. Another important idea is financial independence as increased freedom of choice. Imagine having enough financial stability that you can make a decision without immediately asking whether you can survive the next month. That does not mean having unlimited money. It means having some margin. A reserve can provide breathing room. Manageable expenses can provide flexibility. Useful skills can improve earning ability. Long-term savings can support future goals. Together, these elements can gradually reduce financial pressure. This is why financial independence is better understood as a process. You do not need to reach some imaginary finish line before experiencing any benefit. Every improvement in financial stability can create additional options. Reducing unnecessary expenses can create room. Building savings can create room. Learning a valuable skill can create room. Paying down an expensive obligation can create room. These steps may appear ordinary, but their combined effect can be meaningful. Another important lesson is the value of reducing unnecessary commitments. A commitment is different from a one-time purchase. A recurring payment continues to affect future income. The more fixed obligations you have, the more income you may need simply to maintain your current lifestyle. This can reduce flexibility. That is why major financial commitments deserve careful thought. Before taking on a long-term expense, consider the complete effect. What will it cost over time? What happens if your income decreases? What other goals might become harder? Is the benefit genuinely important? Would a simpler alternative provide most of the same value? These questions can prevent temporary excitement from becoming permanent financial pressure. Another important principle is learning to distinguish enough from more. More can be attractive because it creates the impression of progress. A larger income feels better. A larger house can feel better. A newer vehicle can feel better. A bigger collection of possessions can appear to represent success. But more does not automatically mean better. At some point, additional consumption can provide less satisfaction while requiring more time and resources. Recognizing enough can therefore be a form of financial clarity. Enough is not identical for everyone. It depends on responsibilities, circumstances, values, and personal priorities. The goal is not to copy someone else's definition. The goal is to discover your own. When you know what is enough, you become less dependent on endless comparison. You can appreciate what you already have while still working responsibly toward future goals. Another important lesson is the relationship between money and work. Work provides more than income. It can provide experience, skills, relationships, confidence, contribution, and personal development. Therefore, financial independence should not automatically be interpreted as escaping all work. For some people, meaningful work may remain valuable even after financial pressure decreases. The deeper objective is to create the freedom to choose work for reasons beyond immediate financial necessity. That could mean choosing work that fits your abilities. It could mean spending more time developing a skill. It could mean reducing unnecessary pressure. It could mean changing direction when circumstances require it. Financial stability can create choices, but the choices still need to be used responsibly. Another important idea is measuring progress by more than money. A growing financial balance can be useful, but it is not the only measure of progress. You may also be improving your financial knowledge. You may be reducing waste. You may be strengthening your skills. You may be becoming more disciplined. You may be developing better habits. These improvements can strengthen your financial position even before their effects become obvious in your account. This is why patience is essential. Long-term progress can look insignificant from one day to the next. But repeated decisions can gradually change the direction of your life. Another important principle is avoiding the pressure to keep up with others. Someone else's lifestyle tells you very little about their actual financial position. A person may appear successful while carrying significant obligations. Another person may live simply while being financially stable. Appearances cannot provide a complete picture. Comparing possessions can therefore become a poor way to measure success. A better measure is whether your money is supporting your responsibilities and priorities. Are your expenses manageable? Are you preparing for the future? Are you building useful skills? Are you making thoughtful decisions? Are you becoming less dependent on unnecessary consumption? These questions are more meaningful than asking whether your lifestyle looks impressive. Another important lesson is the power of conscious choices. Every time you pause before spending, you create an opportunity to make a deliberate decision. Every time you review an unnecessary subscription, you create an opportunity to redirect money. Every time you save instead of spending automatically, you create an opportunity for future flexibility. Every time you learn before making a financial decision, you reduce the possibility of acting blindly. These actions may feel small. But financial independence is often built through small actions repeated consistently. There will also be mistakes. No one makes perfect financial decisions. The goal is not perfection. The goal is learning. If an expense does not provide the value you expected, understand why. If a financial decision creates unnecessary pressure, examine what happened. If a habit is not helping your goals, adjust it. A mistake can become useful when it leads to better understanding. Another important principle is keeping your financial life aligned with your values. Money should support legitimate responsibilities and meaningful priorities. It should not become the only measure of success. A person can have financial goals while still valuing family, learning, service, character, responsibility, and personal growth. Financial planning becomes more useful when it supports a balanced life rather than replacing it. Ultimately, the goal is not to spend less simply for the sake of spending less. The goal is to spend according to what matters. It is not to work endlessly simply to accumulate more. It is to understand what your work is providing and what you want your time to accomplish. It is not to reject every purchase. It is to make purchases consciously. It is not to fear money. It is to understand it. And it is not to chase a perfect financial life. It is to build a more intentional one. When money is connected to your limited time and energy, financial decisions become more meaningful. You begin to recognize that every choice has an opportunity cost. Every hour spent earning money is an hour that cannot be spent elsewhere. Every unnecessary recurring expense can reduce future flexibility. Every thoughtful saving decision can create another option. Every useful skill can strengthen your ability to earn and adapt. This perspective can gradually transform the way you see financial independence. It becomes less about becoming someone else and more about creating a financial life that fits your own responsibilities, priorities, and legitimate goals. The question is no longer simply, how much money can I accumulate? It becomes, how can I use my limited time, energy, and money in a way that reflects what truly matters? That question leads naturally toward the next stage of the journey, understanding how financial progress can be measured, maintained, and connected to long-term freedom. What if the real purpose of financial planning was never simply to have more money? What if the deeper purpose was to use money more consciously so that your limited time, energy, and resources could support the life you genuinely want to build? That is the central question we have explored throughout this educational summary of Your Money or Your Life by Vicki and Joe Dominguez. Money is useful. It can provide for legitimate needs, support responsibilities, create opportunities, and provide financial stability. But money also represents something deeper. To earn money, we generally exchange a portion of our time and effort. And unlike money, time cannot be stored for later. Once a day has passed, it cannot be recovered. This is why becoming more conscious about money can also mean becoming more conscious about life. The first major lesson is awareness. Know what you earn. Know what you spend. Understand your recurring expenses. Recognize your financial obligations. And pay attention to where your resources are going. Without awareness, financial decisions can easily become automatic. With awareness, you gain the ability to choose. The second lesson is intentional spending. The objective is not to eliminate every enjoyable purchase. Life includes reasonable enjoyment, comfort, relationships, learning, recreation, and meaningful experiences. The important question is whether your spending reflects your priorities. A purchase should not automatically be considered valuable simply because you can afford it. At the same time, something should not automatically be considered wasteful simply because it costs money. The better question is: does this use of my resources provide enough value to justify the time and effort required to earn them? That question encourages thoughtful decisions rather than extreme behavior. Another major lesson is the importance of saving. When you consistently spend everything you earn, financial flexibility remains limited. But when you create a sustainable gap between income and expenses, you can begin preparing for the future. Savings can provide a reserve for unexpected needs. They can support future goals. They can reduce dependence on borrowing. And they can create additional choices when circumstances change. The exact amount a person should save depends on their own situation. There is no universal number that guarantees financial security. What matters is developing a responsible habit of preparation. We also explored financial independence. Financial independence does not have to mean becoming extraordinarily wealthy. It can mean gradually reducing the degree to which financial pressure controls your decisions. Greater financial stability can provide more flexibility. It may allow you to consider work choices more carefully. It may help you handle unexpected expenses. It may allow you to spend more time on meaningful responsibilities and goals. The destination will look different for different people. But the underlying idea is greater freedom of choice. Another important lesson is defining enough. If the goal is always more, there may never be a final point of satisfaction. There will always be something newer, larger, faster, or more expensive. Recognizing what is enough can protect you from endless comparison and unnecessary consumption. Enough does not mean giving up ambition. It means understanding when additional consumption no longer provides enough value to justify its cost. This is a personal decision. Your responsibilities and priorities are different from someone else's. Therefore, your definition of enough should also be your own. We also examined the connection between money and work. Work can provide income, but it can also provide skills, experience, contribution, relationships, and personal growth. Financial independence should therefore not automatically mean rejecting work. Instead, greater financial flexibility can provide more freedom to choose meaningful and appropriate work. The objective is to reduce unnecessary financial pressure while continuing to live responsibly. Another major lesson is simplicity. Financial life can become complicated very quickly. There are countless products, strategies, advertisements, predictions, and opinions. But more complexity does not automatically create better results. Understanding your own finances, controlling unnecessary spending, saving consistently, learning continuously, and preparing for uncertainty can provide a strong foundation. The goal is not to know everything. The goal is to understand the things that matter enough to make responsible decisions. We also explored comparison. A person's possessions do not reveal their complete financial situation. Someone may appear wealthy while carrying significant obligations. Another person may live simply while having strong financial stability. Therefore, comparing lifestyles can easily become misleading. A better comparison is with your own previous behavior. Are you becoming more aware? Are you spending more intentionally? Are you saving more consistently? Are your financial obligations becoming more manageable? Are you learning? Are you preparing for the future? These questions provide a much clearer picture of financial progress. Another important lesson is patience. Financial independence rarely develops overnight. It can require years of responsible choices. Savings accumulate gradually. Skills develop gradually. Financial knowledge develops gradually. Habits become stronger through repetition. There may be setbacks along the way. That does not mean the process has failed. What matters is learning, adjusting, and continuing responsibly. And perhaps the most important lesson is this. Money should serve your life, not become the entire purpose of your life. Financial planning should support legitimate responsibilities, meaningful priorities, family needs, personal development, education, productive work, and future stability. It should not replace character, relationships, responsibility, or purpose. A financially strong life is not necessarily the life with the most possessions. It can be the life where resources are managed wisely and used according to clear priorities. Throughout this summary, we have focused on responsible financial awareness, moderation, saving, preparation, intentional spending, and long-term thinking. Ideas that would conflict with Islamic principles have not been presented as teachings to follow. This summary is educational and uses original wording. It is not personalized financial, investment, tax, or legal advice. Financial decisions involve risks and should be evaluated according to your own circumstances and, when appropriate, with qualified professional guidance. So as we close, return to the question with which we began. What is your money actually costing you? Perhaps the answer is more than a number. It may represent hours of work, energy, attention, opportunities, and pieces of a limited life. That realization does not need to create fear. It can create awareness. And awareness can create better choices. Earn responsibly. Spend intentionally. Save consistently. Learn continuously. Prepare for uncertainty. Define what is enough. Protect your future flexibility. And use your resources according to what genuinely matters. Because the ultimate goal is not simply to have more money. The goal is to build a life in which your money, your time, and your choices work together responsibly. Your time is limited. Your resources matter. Use both wisely.